Look, I've been a xenoarchaeologist for the Galactic Federation for nearly 300 cycles, and I thought I'd seen it all. Every species claiming they invented faster-than-light travel. Every civilization insisting their old artifacts held the secrets of the universe. Every culture demanding we preserve their crumbling monuments like the galaxy depended on it. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepare me for the day a human walked into the hall of conquered empires and casually tore 17,000 years of history apart. That I'm Vorkix, and I work at the Museum of Galactic Antiquity on Station Helios 9. Sounds impressive, right? In reality, it's just a fancy way of saying I dust off old bones and explain to tourists why dead civilizations matter. The pay is low, the hours are terrible, and my supervisor is a four-armed Quillari who thinks personal space is a myth that IT was a standard rotation. The museum had just opened, and I could see the usual crowd filtering in, Zenready students giggling at the reproductive displays, an elderly Morphilian couple moving slower than continental drift. And then, there he was, the human, tall by human standards, dark hair, darker eyes, and wearing what humans call a leather jacket. His name tag read, Marcus Webb, Xenoanthropologist, Earth Coalition. I immediately thought, an expert? Great. Experts are always fun to deal with, especially human ones who ask questions about everything. Marcus wandered through the exhibits, hands in his pockets, nodding at some plaques, frowning at others. I kept one of my three eyes on him while pretending to organize a display of Thynian burial masks. My species, the Kelzerans, have excellent peripheral vision, perfect for watching troublesome visitors, but Marcus ignored most of the hall. Quantum displacement drives? Skipped. Communication crystals? Ignored. Biological stasis chambers? Not a glance. He went straight to the hall of conquered empires. That, of course, he did. That I followed quietly. The hall was a monument to civilizations that rose, ruled, and fell. Artifacts from the Dralaxian hegemony, the Corvinth Dominion, the unified provinces of Kelmuth, all carefully authenticated and curated. The crown jewel was the skull of Emperor Thax the Unifier. According to every source, he united 73 warring clan states, created interstellar trade routes, and ruled for 67 years. Priceless, historic, untouchable. Marcus stopped in front of it, hand in pockets, head tilted. Curiosity turned to confusion. Then recognition that I should have walked away. I didn't. Fascinating, isn't it? I said, trying to sound professional. Marcus didn't look at me. He stared at the skull. Quick question, he said slowly. Why does it have human teeth? I blinked. All three of my eyes. I watched Marcus lean closer to the display case. His eyes narrowed, studying the skull as if it were a puzzle he had solved halfway before anyone else even noticed. Human teeth, he repeated, tapping his scanner against the glass. Human dental structure, human jaw formation. Everything points to, well, a human. I felt my three eyes spin in sequence. This is impossible. This skull, I said, trying to stay calm, is Emperor Thax of the Ventine Empire, one of the most studied artifacts in the galaxy. Verified multiple times. Peer-reviewed. 17,000 years of history confirm it. And you're telling me it's a human skull? Marcus shrugged. That irritating, confident human shrug. Not just human. Probably healthy, educated, wealthy. But yes, definitely human. And not ancient. Maybe 500 years old at most. I tried to laugh. I tried to argue. I tried to cling to any logical explanation. Convergent evolution, a rare coincidence, some unknown xenoanatomical similarity. Anything. No, Marcus said calmly. Teeth don't lie. Not the number, not the shape, not the arrangement. This is human. End of story. I swallowed hard. My tertiary heart, the one that only beats under extreme stress, started racing. The last time it kicked in, I accidentally triggered a Vanian death curse. I didn't survive that well, and I sure as heck didn't want to repeat it. Then how? I demanded. How is it in our museum? How did a human skull replace one of the greatest emperors in history? Marcus grinned. It was not a friendly grin. That's the interesting part. I think the answer is going to be fun. Before I could respond, he pulled out a small device from his jacket, some kind of portable scanner, and pointed it at the display. Data streamed across its tiny screen. Beeps confirmed every terrifying suspicion. Human. DNA markers match Homo sapiens. Earth origin. Bone is roughly 470 years old. Chemical composition indicates exposure to normal Earth conditions. The last century? Artificial preservation. My tertiary heart practically did gymnastics. This wasn't just impossible, it was career-ending. The skull had been in our collection for over 200 years. Multiple experts verified it. Thousands of visitors assumed it was Emperor Thax himself. And now, a human had just torn the foundation of our historical record to pieces that I took a deep breath, trying to calm the panic clawing at my mind. We need independent verification. Multiple labs. Cross-reference everything. We can't just rely on your handheld device. Marcus nodded. Already done. I sent the data to 3 xenobiology labs. Should hear back in an hour. Meanwhile, he tilted his head, eyes darkening. Who benefits from everyone believing a human skull is an ancient alien emperor? I froze. This isn't just about a fake artifact. The museum had been my life for 300 cycles. My routines, my careful verifications, my reputation, all built on the assumption that we were the authority on galactic history. And now, every single artifact, every verified piece of history, was potentially a lie that I glanced at Marcus. His gaze pinned me like a predator sizing up prey. The question hung in the air, who pulled off the ultimate historical deception? And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. I barely had time to process what Marcus had just revealed before my communicator buzzed. My stomach dropped. Of course, it's my supervisor. The message was simple. Vor, I need you in my office. Immediately. We have a situation. Great. Just great that I left Marcus standing by the skull. He hadn't touched anything else, and sprinted across the polished stone floors on my 4 legs. Not gracefully, but fast. My supervisor, Director Klenovox, a 4-armed Quillari with zero tolerance for nonsense, didn't waste time on pleasantries. Her office looked deliberately bland, boring enough to remind everyone that no matter how fascinating the artifacts are, bureaucracy rules here. Inside, I found 2 more figures. One was a distinguished Morphilian in expensive robes. The other, a sharp-eyed Centauri, carefully neutral in expression. These are Representative Gorm Hicks from the Federation Historical Preservation Committee. Director Vox said, her voice calm but deadly, and Miss Tyler Rash, legal counsel for the Museum Accreditation Board. They have questions about your Ventine collection. Oh no, I muttered. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Representative Hicks's voice was gravelly and tired. Reports suggest that artifacts in your collection may not be authentic. Detailed molecular analysis, genetic sequencing, and historical documentation indicate widespread fraud. Reports filed by a human xenoanthropologist named Marcus Webb. My mind short-circuited. Marcus Webb, the human in my museum. Miss Rash activated a holographic display that made my vision blur. He has already published preliminary findings to 3 academic journals, posted raw data to public databases, and submitted formal complaints to multiple governmental bodies across 6 star systems. I tried to breathe. Failed. Director Vox's 4 eyes bore into me. Vor, please tell me the skull of Emperor Thax, the centerpiece of our museum, is not actually a human skull planted by a known criminal. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. I would love to tell you that, I said finally. But telling the truth and telling you what you want to hear are mutually exclusive right now. The silence that followed was heavy. A supernova before collapse, kind of silence that I explained Marcus's findings. The skull was human, probably planted by Pex Thorin, a convicted criminal who had sold forgeries before. The scientists who authenticated it, likely bribed, long retired, and no methodology published. Representative Hicks asked quietly, how many other artifacts have you personally verified? I had no good answer. Most artifacts had been authenticated decades or centuries before I arrived. Only spot checks were done, and deep molecular analysis was rare. Our museum was trusted, and now that trust was collapsing. Marcus, of course, had already begun scanning other displays. Au cérémoniel sorvent de million de guerre. Fake. Maker's Mark traced back to a 21st century Earth forge, specializing in replicas. My stomach dropped further. This is bigger than I imagined. Marcus, grinning, said, "Humans have a saying, the truth will set you free. But first, it makes you very, very angry." He was right. In a few months, the Museum of Galactic Antiquity would close for a complete audit. 47% of our artifacts were forgeries. Other major museums discovered similar problems. Historians were stripped of credentials. And Marcus Webb became simultaneously the most hated and most respected human in galactic academia. I, meanwhile, got promoted for taking the allegations seriously even as my career was crumbling. I now headed the Department of Authentication Integrity, a fancy way of saying I spent my days verifying the truth behind our artifacts. Exhausting, stressful, and often depressing, but honest. And honestly, after 300 cycles of comfortable lies, maybe a little uncomfortable truth was exactly what the galaxy needed. I hurried back to the Hall of Conquered Empires. Marcus was exactly where I'd left him, hands in his pockets, examining another display. This time, a ceremonial Corvant Dominion dagger. "Bad news," he said cheerfully, without looking up. "Also fake. Maker's Mark shows it came from a 21st century Earth forge. They specialized in movie props and replicas." I let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Honestly, I couldn't tell which anymore. You realize what this means?" I stammered. "If the dagger's fake, how many other artifacts?" Marcus finally looked up, that grin creeping across his face again. "Exactly. That's why I'm scanning everything. Every artifact, every display, every claim verified centuries ago. It's a full-scale audit of the museum." "You're welcome. My tertiary heart. Remember, the one that only beats in extreme stress, decided to perform Olympic gymnastics. My career, my reputation, everything, potentially destroyed in a matter of hours that I tried to stay calm. Marcus, my supervisor, wants to meet you." "She's not happy." "Am I being arrested?" he asked. "Probably not. Maybe. Honestly, I don't know. But congratulations. You've triggered an authentication crisis that spans the galaxy." He laughed. That human laugh that somehow manages to be both infuriating and charming. Humans have a saying, Vor. The truth will set you free. But first, it makes everyone angry. And angry they were about to get. 3 months later, the Museum of Galactic Antiquity closed for a full audit. Nearly half the artifacts were forgeries. 8 other major museums across the Federation discovered similar problems. 16 historians lost their credentials. Entire fields of xenoarchaeology and historical studies were thrown into chaos. And Marcus Webb? He became a legend, universally hated, universally respected, simultaneously the bane and savior of galactic academia. I, on the other hand, survived. Barely, but I got promoted for taking the situation seriously. I now head the Department of Authentication Integrity, a fancy way of saying I spend my days verifying that artifacts are real. Exhausting, stressful, often depressing, but honest. And after 300 cycles of comfortable lies, maybe that uncomfortable truth, the one with human teeth, was exactly what the galaxy needed. 3 months later, the Museum of Galactic Antiquity remained closed. Every display, every artifact, every historical claim had been audited, verified, or declared fake. Nearly half the collection, centuries of curated history, turn out to be forgeries. Other major museums across the Federation uncovered similar frauds. 16 historians had their credentials revoked. Entire fields of study were thrown into chaos. And Marcus Webb? He had done what no human or any alien had ever done before. He had systematically dismantled 17,000 years of accepted history and lived to tell the tale. The academic community simultaneously loathed him and worshipped him. As for me, I survived. Somehow, I even got promoted. Now, I run the Department of Authentication Integrity. My days are spent verifying every artifact in the galaxy that claims to be real. Exhausting, stressful, often depressing. But honest, I still remember the first time I saw Marcus lean over Emperor Thax's skull. That moment didn't just reveal a fake artifact. It revealed the fragility of trust, the blind faith we placed in centuries of accepted history, and the ease with which human ingenuity could turn the galaxy on its head. Humans, I realized, have a way of questioning everything, poking at every assumption, and refusing to accept truths just because everyone else does. Sometimes it's infuriating. Sometimes it's terrifying. But sometimes it's exactly what the galaxy needed. The museum eventually reopened. Fewer tourists, fewer artifacts, much stricter verification. And every time I walk through the halls, I see Marcus's influence everywhere. Every scan, every check, every careful verification. It all traces back to the human who asked one simple question: why does it have human teeth? And in that simple question, the course of history had changed.